Welcome to the webinar, Resilient Regional Entrepreneur Ecosystems, Focus on MSMEs. Bienvenidos al webinar, Resiliencia de los ecosistemas regionales de emprendedorismo, enfoque MiPymes. Before we begin, I would like to comment on some housekeeping issues. First, you may ask your questions in chat or Q&A functions, whichever you find more comfortable. We will accept questions in Spanish and in English. Second, to access the translation or switch to the original language channel, you should click on the button of the right. There is a globe. So you can click on that for your options panel. Antes de iniciar, me gustaría comentar algunos detalles domésticos. En primer lugar, pueden hacer llegar sus preguntas al chat o a través de las funciones Q y A, la que encuentren de mayor utilidad para ustedes. Vamos a aceptar preguntas en inglés y en español. Para acceder a la traducción al español o cambiar al lenguaje original, tienen que hacer clic en el icono del globito que aparece a la derecha, abajo a la derecha, en sus opciones de panel. This event marks the launch of the Manual for Improvement of MSME, Resilience to Disasters and Crisis. The manual is a result of the Community Outreach Project, VME 200022, Manual para mejorar la resiliencia de las MiPymes regionales frente a la pandemia de COVID-19 y otros desastres y crisis. Sponsored by Universidad de La Frontera, UFRO, and implemented by the Department of Management and Economics and Department of Industrial and System Engineering of UFRO. The main partner of the Community Outreach Project is the Regional Directorate of the Chilean Service of Technical Assistance, known as Cercotec La Araucanía. Cercotec La Araucanía and the Faculty of Science and Juridical Entrepreneurs, UFRO, have signed a collaboration agreement in year 2020 that strengthens the joint work in progress since years ago. We also thank Incubatec UFRO, the largest business incubator and accelerator in Chile, and the ICSB, International Council for Small Business, for being patrons of this launch activity and promoting it around the globe. The sponsor is the Directorate of Outreach Engagement of Universidad de La Frontera, and this event is being simultaneously translated to Spanish by Benjamin Bascour. On behalf of the Department of Management and Economics at Universidad de La Frontera and my department, I would like to express my gratitude to all of them. I will be your moderator. My name is Marta Ramirez Valdivia, and I am an associate professor of quality management and lean manufacturing in the Industrial and Systems Engineering Department, and the former director of quality and director of international relations at Universidad de La Frontera, Temuco, Chile. I was an active member of the International Relations, member of the Quality Committee of the Council of Rectors of Chilean Universities, and served as president of the International Relations Committee of the same councils. With over 25 years of experience, I've been working as a consultant and researcher, having participated in applied research projects in the US, 10 of them, Nicaragua, 4, Argentina, 1, and Chile, 8, authoring and co-authoring 12 articles and chapters in 3 books. This morning, joining us are the authorities of La Araucanía Entrepreneurial Ecosystem. The Department Chair of Management and Economics at Universidad de La Frontera, Dr. Roberto Rebeco, and Regional Minister, we refer to them as Ceremi in Chile, for Economy, Development and Tourism, Mr. Francisco Lopez Bahamonde, and the representative of patrons, Mr. Christian Campomanes from Incubatec. The alternate regional director, Cercotec from the Araucanía region, Ms. Silvia Bastidas Fuentes, could not be here with us today due to unexpected activity which required her presence, so we are happy to greet the Ceremi. Thank you for joining us today. We would also like to thank ICSB, Knowledge Hubs, K-Hubs, for promoting this event. K-Hubs are institutions and or networks dedicated to capturing, sharing, and exchanging development experiences with national and international partners in order to accelerate the development of on around micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Knowledge hubs consist of organizations, universities, research institutions, NGOs, and firms that are working to successfully create new knowledge, drive innovation, and build networks. First, I would like to invite Dr. Roberto Rebeco to greet the audience in the name of the hosts and organizers of this event, Universidad de La Frontera. Dr. Rebeco.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome and receive a cordial greeting from the Department of Management and Economics of the Universidad de La Frontera. A special greeting to our guest speaker, Mr. Norris Krieger, and also to our academics Eva Sebrit and Marta Ramirez from the Department of Management and Economics and the Department of System Engineering, respectively, who have carried out this work. Of course, a warm welcome to all who have joined this interesting conference. The manual augments the social impact of an ongoing action research project. Both projects have an entrepreneurial ecosystem view of micro, small, and medium enterprises resilience and entrepreneurial reality. We believe that this approach is of use both to academics and practitioners, and we hope that our presentations provoke thought and action to grow our entrepreneurial ecosystem and strengthen the resilience process. So join us and enjoy this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you to all of you for participating in this webinar. To those of you joining us now, please make sure to choose your audio channel. The original language is English and the translation channel is marked Espanol, so you can click on the globe. Now, I would like to invite Seremi Lopez to say some words about the partnership between UFRO and Cercotec La Araucanía, which we are celebrating here today. Mr. Lopez.
Okay. Muy buenos días a todos y a todas. Un gusto recibir esta invitación de la Universidad de La Frontera. Aprovecho por su intermedio saludar al señor rector, Eduardo Hebel, y a quienes nos han extendido la invitación, los doctores Roberto Rebeco y Galo Paiva. Además de saludarlo a usted, señora Marta, también a Eva y a todos los participantes del panel. Para nosotros como gobierno es un agrado y un placer haber recibido la invitación de la Universidad de La Frontera de participar en este libro que habla de la resiliencia de los emprendedores en tiempos tan difíciles como una pandemia que ha azotado la economía regional y mundial durante más de un año. Nosotros en la Araucanía, en nuestra región, tenemos más de 47.000 empresas, de las cuales el 95% de ellas son micro y pequeñas empresas. Y tener este insumo que va a servir para generaciones en adelante, para que los emprendedores puedan motivarse también en base a la experiencia que vivieron miles de emprendedores en estas circunstancias, en que a través de la resiliencia y la perseverancia pudieron sacar adelante tantos emprendimientos que hoy día se han visto afectados por la situación económica que derivaba de la pandemia, donde rubros como el turismo, la gastronomía, la hotelería, el deporte y otros se han visto sumamente afectados. Así que es un insumo muy importante que yo agradezco a la Universidad de La Frontera el que nos hayan invitado a participar a través de Cercotec, que es un servicio que es dependiente del Ministerio de Economía y que tiene un objetivo principal en nuestra región, que es generar programas y herramientas para apoyar a los emprendedores, y en eso hemos estado muy enfocados durante este último año para tratar de paliar y extenderle una mano en momentos tan difíciles como los que están sucediendo en este minuto, y donde esperamos que la vacunación masiva que tiene a nuestro país con más de un 40% con segunda dosis nos ayude mucho a poder levantar y reactivar en los próximos meses la economía de la región y del país. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Seremi. As always, it is nice to have you with us, albeit in the Zoom room. Nevertheless, these virtual spaces are important for us, sharing times and ideas and celebrating the micro, small, and medium enterprises of our region. Today, the topics we will be sharing with you are Resilient in Subnational Ecosystem by Norris Krieger, PhD, MSME Resilience, Key Processes with Entrepreneurial Ecosystem by Eva Sebrit. I will now introduce our first presenter. Norris Krieger, PhD. Norris is a professional trained educator with multiple national and global awards for best practice emphasizing cutting-edge project-based learning. This helped him become a leading thinking and doer in expert entrepreneurial thinking. How do we nurture and identify the entrepreneurial mindset? Use that to assess the impact of entrepreneurial training and education. Most current work focuses on entrepreneurial ecosystems, where he works to drive great research and bottom-up entrepreneur-led development. Besides research efforts, Norris is a leader in the Kaufman Foundation's ESHIP initiative to promote best-in-class ecosystems, building, working on metric and policy. Educator, writer, speaker, scholar, ecosystem builder, provocateur. Norris, you're on.
Thank you. I want to make sure I get this right. I'm honored to be here. Let me share my screen. According to this, I cannot share my screen. Can you authorize me?
I'm on it. Give me a second. Our technician had to be on another call, so I'm the technician. All right, should work now.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not.
You should
not yet.
stop sharing,
All right,
sharing and start.
Let's try again. Okay. All right, let's share my
There
screen.
you go, Norris.
And let's actually, something you can actually watch. Hi.
Yes, we do.
Great. I'm glad to be here. I am honored. It is so important that we have a lot of people here. I'm honored that the Minister of the Economy is here. There is so much that his department can do, and as we're going to go through this, and Francisco will be particularly pleased that most of what we can do to help entrepreneurs and grow a resilient ecosystem doesn't cost any money. So that's in these tough times, that's a good thing to know. So let me, something I always start about, something to get people's brain going on this is something I love to do, and it's fun that works online as well as in person, is how would you know you have a healthy, resilient local ecosystem? How would you know that your community is getting more entrepreneurial without counting the number of businesses, the number of startups, the size of business? What would be something maybe non-economic that is telling you things are getting better, things are getting more entrepreneurial? And it's a tough question at first, but once you start thinking about it, what are all the little signals that are telling you that that things are improving for new business and for small business, or for both? And one of the things that I'm going to come back to this later, because I am going to give you homework. As I do these talks, I always like to give homework. Don't worry, I'm an easy grader, but it is so important to have your feedback. So please don't miss an opportunity to use the chat. Quick overview. I'm going to do some quick introductory slides. May need to talk a little bit about what entrepreneurship is, and start the discussion about what is resilience in this context. Then I don't know how familiar you are with the with practice and practitioner and academic perspectives on what an ecosystem is. I will go through that quickly, unless you would like me to take that a little bit more slowly. And then the meat of it is getting back into resilience, where we're going to talk about what we can do together. So the homework's not just for you, it's also for me. Anyway, shall we press on? So I want you to get your brains thinking, back of your head, think about that marker. If you play poker, the tell, or what is a more resilient, healthier ecosystem. The last time I was in Chile, I was at the Universidad de La Frontera, and I'm allowed to mention other universities, and they had a cartoon about the three villains of every ecosystem. And I went to Google Translate, and it couldn't translate any of those. So it was very much Chilean Spanish. But that you have people who you have in every ecosystem around the world. You have the people who are who will betray you, will bully you in the ecosystem. You have the people who are con artists who all they want is the spotlight, and the people who are just too stubborn to change no matter how good things are. Anyway, I hope I was told that these were three obscene words. They're not, but apparently in the ecosystem world they were. Anyway, I got a kick out of that, and I think there's something there we could work on later. Okay. Resilient entrepreneurial ecosystems. And I talked to some of my people who are involved with academic research and some of the people who are involved in the practitioner side, including Ewing Marion Kaufman's eShip program. And they said, just say entrepreneurial ecosystems, because a healthy ecosystem is resilient. And I hadn't really thought of it that way, that it's not that, how do we make that resilience is a way to, that's my marker for whether an ecosystem is healthy. I don't want to miss the opportunity. You've got some great patrons. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Those who are attending, please make note of these, and if you ever get a chance, a nice thank you email would be lovely. That nobody ever gets appreciated enough or thanked enough. One of the things that ICSB is one of the sponsors, and one of the things that we've been having an ongoing conversation is that even if we didn't have the pandemic, this is the time for the great rethink. Let's rethink all of our assumptions. Let us take a deep look at everything that's going on. And more than ever, we need entrepreneurial thinkers. We need entrepreneurial actors. We need ecosystems to support them. And so many other things are changing. By the way, if you're interested on building a program from the ground up, one of our guests in the audience is Asif Iqbal from Daffodil University in Bangladesh, and he and his wife have done a marvelous job of going out. Instead of building a university program first, they went out and built the ecosystem first. They helped, started a startup huddle, started a grind, things like that. So he's in the chat. You definitely want to connect with him if you're interested in such things. People usually say, well, you have to define entrepreneurship. And one of the things that, there are three things I want to take away. One is, the Kawasaki thing is, if you want to make money, you got to make meaning first. If you don't make meaning, you probably won't make money, not for long. And something I'm going to come back to at the very end is my old mantra of students are our secret weapon. If you're looking for resources to do projects, I've had great experience in my life of using students, even undergraduate students, even secondary school students, to do amazing work to help grow the ecosystem. The last thing is, this is a report, ICSB's report for UN Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises Day. Only the United Nations could come up with such a long title, but they're doing an annual report. They do an annual report in honor of that day, and I can guarantee you, I'm going to bug you. There should be a chapter in that, a short essay about what's going on in Chile. So that's your homework, and you know that I'm going to send Ayman after you, and you will not escape. Anyway, the real key of entrepreneurship is red tennis shoes, particularly Converse Chuck Taylors. These are kind of old and beaten up, but since this was at a Kauffman Foundation event, I sort of did that. That's been my signature go-to. I'm not flexible enough to show you, but I'm wearing high top red Chucks today. It inspires the entrepreneurial spirit in me, and I actually do recommend it. Okay. Resilience. And I asked people, just average people, they say, well, what do you mean by resilient? And the one question that kept coming up, can you be too resilient? Is it possible to be too resilient? And I'm not sure I have a good answer for that, but it's something for you to be thinking about. you can try so hard to be resilient that you actually don't make progress. You play it too safe. You are too cautious about that. So if you've got an example of where being highly resilient is bad, would you drop that in the chat? Would you? I'd be interested to see what you know. And coming back to my very first slide is, how would you know? I want to ask people, how do you know your ecosystem was resilient? That in a lot of cases, when they first started talking about ecosystems was in the early 2000s, and every ecosystem looked resilient because every local economy was doing was getting better until the crash in 2008, 2009, 2010. But a nagging question I have is, if you have a healthy ecosystem, can you have one that isn't resilient, that is not resilient? That's a tough question. And again, that I am guessing no. I think resilience is at the heart of every local economy. I'm going to come back. There's a reason for that. There's even a scientific reason for that. Another thing to think about is when we're asking about a real resilient ecosystem, this is my very first question, is that there's a trade-off. Are you iron or are you steel? Are you very strong but can't bend? Or can you be less strong but you do bend? And again, I think the latter, steel, is better, but that may depend on your local economy. But for my first research I've done on resilience has been psychological. There's a thing called Martin Seligman, a great social psychologist and one of the founders of the field of positive psychology, created this instrument decades ago called learned optimism. Are you resilient to adversity psychologically? If something bad happens, will it happen again? If something bad happens, is it going to be contagious, and similar things will go bad? And even when it's unrealistic, it is psychologically very healthy to believe that you're resilient. The key to being resilient is believing you're resilient. And social and cultural norms, things like the media, can be very helpful in that. That there's also a concept, a famous economist, Taleb, talked about fragile and anti-fragile. What he means by, if we're talking about anti-fragile, when bad things happen, the system gets stronger, it learns, and it builds. And everybody wants to be anti-fragile, but it's very, very hard to get. But Google the word anti-fragile and tell me what you think. Again, one of the things about social resilience is a community resilient. It has to do with how interconnected people are. The more stakeholders, defined very broadly, the more you are connected to, the more resilient that community will be, and the individuals within it. Because you can't have a resilient community without resilient individuals. It's possible to be resilient as an individual without a resilient community, but it sure helps. And we also have economic resilience. Are you able to adapt to what's going on when things have changed? Are you able to use the popular current word, pivot? That communities can pivot, ecosystems can pivot just as individuals and businesses can. And that's sort of intrigues me. So I'm going to go somewhat quickly through sort of an overview of ecosystems from a resilience perspective. If you would like me to slow down, please holler in the chat or in the Q&A to push me forward. Actually, I've got some chat stuff already. I can't see it, but so if there's anything in the chat I need to respond to, please interrupt me. So
Sure,
resilient,
no
that a couple things. I mean, this, I sort of did a preview here. Is the hard thing for a lot of people to look at is that we're focusing on the networks, not the silos, as we would say in English. I I cannot pronounce this very well, but hierarchies is that there's both silos and networks in every organization and every community. It's a mix of this. The question is, do the silos serve the networks, or do the networks have to serve the silos? In a healthy ecosystem, it's the first, that the silos are there to help the networks of entrepreneurs and their champions. We're going to come back in a bit on this, but a crucial point is that it's about connecting. And some people are good at their role in the economy is to connect people and resources, people to people. There are some who are, the scientific term we use is gatekeeper. Their job is to connect you to resources, but they are guarding those resources. They're not facilitating people to everyone to access a given resource. They are controlling that. And sometimes that's good. A banker shouldn't give a loan to everybody, but sometimes that's very bad, is that sometimes people don't get invited to things like this webinar unless they're one of the cool people. And there's a great term in French, liaison animateur, to describe great connectors. If you're on this call, you probably are one of these. You're both a broker and an intermediary, but you're also an energizer, that you are proactively connecting people. Think about in the last whatever period of time, when you realized there were two people you knew who didn't know each other, who should. And you said, hey, you talk now. Wasn't that a great feeling? Well, you want to cultivate the people who do that all the time in your community. And the Kauffman Foundation in the US has coined the term ecosystem builders. We'll be on to that. But a lot of it is that, as you might guess from the first point, that what we're looking to be healthy, you've got to be able to absorb information from the grassroots, from the entrepreneurs themselves, from the innovators themselves. The more you're listening to them and hearing what they're saying, the more resilient you will be, because you're looking at all those external stakeholders and from on the outside and bringing what they know and who they know into the organization. Now, I'm sorry, there's going to be some science here. That's the bad news. The good news in part of this is that these are three classic kinds of networks. And there are some that are very centralized. There's somebody at the hub who wants to own and control everything. That in some cases, they are willing to, okay, there are lots of little hubs, each one of them controlled by one grand master. If you ever read The Lord of the Rings, just think, one ring to rule them all is not indicative of a healthy ecosystem. If you don't know the movies, the books, sorry. But what's really happened, most actual community networks look like the third thing. It's very flat, it's very distributed. And trying to put a hierarchy over this is very hard to do. You really need those liaison animators. You really need those super connectors. So figuring out how to encourage them, to nurture them, is absolutely critical for resilience. And here's why. Again, more science here. And the math gets really crazy. But is it any community, including an ecosystem, are they call complex adaptive systems. They have complicated relationships, they are interconnected, and it all changes dynamically. It is a web rather than, it's very hard to predict, but there are a couple. The example would be between, it's been around long enough now, it's becoming cliche, is the local economy is not like a farm where you have different crops very neatly organized and controllable. It's more like a rainforest. You don't know what's going to happen. It's messy, it's crazy. But innovation lives in the rainforest. And that's just, it's a good image to keep in mind, I think. So in terms of resilience, we're being forced to move. If you're looking at ecosystems, you're being forced to look from, we're not looking top down, we're looking bottom up, outside in. That our focus is less on the institutions, they're still important, but toward human beings, toward the people, especially the connectors. That it's moving from linear to non-linear because it's a complex adaptive system, and a discrete static. Taking a snapshot of a local economy can actually be misleading. What you need to understand are the connections, and thus the connectors. You also be mindful of the dynamics. I'm sure our distinguished minister would be happy if the economy didn't keep changing all the time, but that's actually healthy. The last point is really important because this is something that we first discovered in organizations. People studying organizational strategy, they say, well, we did this great strategy. This is what we intended all along. That's never the case. The real strategy, the important phenomena always emerge, often very unexpectedly. And we have to be prepared to capitalize on it because that's the heart of resilience. And then I was talking about the connectors. The great work by Karen Stevenson, Harvard-trained anthropologist who went to work at a business school at first, now is at Erasmus in Rotterdam. Been studying, there's sort of at the margin, there's three kinds of key players in any ecosystem. The yellow, I'm sorry, this isn't terribly clear, is that someone is a hub. They're these connectors I was talking about. And the green are the gatekeepers, the people who are jealously guarding their resources. So which one do you want to be? The red one are the people who are the Machiavellians in the system, who are often monitoring and react in very self-serving ways. That's a matter of problem. But a pulse taker can also be the people, the media. You would like them to be on top of what's going on and being helpful. Anyway, you're hearing a lot about Industry 4.0, which gets defined a lot of different ways. But it's sort of the new way. I like Seth Godin's phrase, we're now in the connected age. That this is not even IT. It's not just computers and internet. It's really what it's created, those connections. And I hope we're building some great connections here while we're the discussion. And every time I do a talk, I say, let's stay in touch. Let's build on this conversation because a half an hour is just not enough. There are a lot of the things. You can say same things that Industry 4.0 is calling for are the same things that we saw under ecosystems. And one of the heart of this is the notion of stakeholders. And the reality is we've been forced to realize two things. The bad news is we have a lot more stakeholders who have a vested interest or could have a vested interest in what you're doing as individuals, as organizations. That your entrepreneurs have a wider and wider array of stakeholders that they can deal with. The good news is the same thing, that this is an opportunity, not a threat. This is, if you embrace it proactively. You want a resilient community, reach out to as many stakeholders as possible. Find out what your value proposition is for them, not what they can do for you. Hey, what can I do to help those stakeholders? And I found my own life trying to build an ecosystem here in Idaho that's been absolutely been a staggering importance. And another facet of Industry 4.0, it's also been called the age of grand challenges. There are a lot of interest. We're looking at huge problems in society, in our communities, in our countries, in our world, and we need entrepreneurial thinkers. We need people like you who think and act like entrepreneurs. This was an excuse. Another one of your homework assignments is there's a video here courtesy of Ayman Tirabishi and ICSB, is a video from one of the gurus at the UN of the Sustainable Development Goals, Chantal Linné from Pentia. It's an hour on, talks about two things. One, why we need micro, small, and medium businesses if we're going to achieve the SDGs. The big companies aren't going to do it alone. Governments aren't going to do it alone. But even more important, what the SDGs offer an incredible opportunity to new and small business. So I recommend watching this video. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to connect you with Chantal. Some good things here. The practitioners are ahead of the academics on ecosystem stuff. That there are things that we have to, that every community, things we've learned, everybody, the one I like is hippos. What's the highest paid person opinion? We defer to the people with a big job title or who's highest paid, and we assume it's close enough that they know what they're doing. Well, in most cases, they're either arrogantly, yes, I am God, worship me, or they're like, I wish somebody would tell me what I should be talking about. But a lot of the research has been around governance of an ecosystem is centering there. If I was live, I'd ask raise your hands, how many of you heard of Brad Feld and his sort of seminal landmark book, Startup Communities. He studied he was in Boulder, Colorado, one of the architects really of their great ecosystem. And he said, here are 4 things that great startup communities around the world all share. And the first two are the important ones. Is activity happening top down, driven by institutional players who are trying to direct and control the economy, or are the major initiatives being led by people who hear the voice of the entrepreneur, who truly hear it? It doesn't have to be entrepreneurs per se, but it's really a powerful insight that we all knew in our tummy that was right. And also it has to be inclusive. If you just say we're just going to focus on the tech economy, that's not going to help. If we're just going to focus on family business, probably not going to raise the whole economy. But you have to figure out, how do you get all those stakeholders in the game? If you want to be resilient, those are the key points. Another homework assignment, I did a top 10 list on what's the top 10 things we know for sure about growing an ecosystem. I did several years ago, and I'm amazed that it's held up. Part of your homework is to go. You'll get the slides. You can see this later. That's something I would be interested to see. Which ones make sense to you? And which ones do you think I'm full of crap? Eva, does full of crap translate well into Spanish? Sadly, yes. We have people throwing full of crap in every language. I used to be able to say that in Russian and Chinese, but okay. Enough talking about science and the background, all that. Okay, what can we do? What can we do together? And I like acronyms and things like that. So let's just start A, B, C, D. One of the things we know psychologically about it, you cannot be resilient to adversity unless you've gone through adversity. It's kind of sad. It'd be nice if you could learn adversity in the abstract, but you don't know if you're truly resilient until you've gone through this. And my God, the fact we're still alive, we're still on this call, means we are resilient. We have dealt with the biggest hammer blow the world has seen in centuries. And we're it's not always been good, but we're still here breathing, we're still working. B, be prepared. That's the motto of the Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout in the US, but it's about being resourceful, that having both tangible and intangible resources, both particularly people, Who are the people? When something happens, you have the people who are the go-to people. And one of the biggest lessons we've learned, at least in the US, is a lot of the people who give advice to new and small business were clueless in the pandemic. They just didn't understand how to help businesses innovate, radically change business models to compete in the, it's horrifying the bad advice I see small businesses and new businesses getting on an almost daily basis. Much of what I do in my mentoring is fixing what idiots have told them what to do. Composure, crisis plan. Organizations know this. They need to have a crisis plan. If this happens, we're going to do, if A happens, we're going to do B. If C happens, we're going to go D. That they're prepared, they've got an action plan other than like, oh my God, what do we do? Is not a crisis plan. I can speak of personal experience that not planning ahead has been dangerous. And this is the one it's a hot topic, obviously, in the world, but diversity and inclusion is talked about being important for the economy to be inclusive. But do you have, you want to be more resilient, diversify the kinds of industries you have. Try to diversify the kinds of businesses that are out there. It really helps to engage diverse populations. One of the things I'm working on here is we've got the Women's Business Center, our Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which is a lot more fun than our Boise-made Chamber of Commerce. They actually are great at mentoring stuff. Our military veterans, our persons with disabilities, our rural population, and getting them around the table virtually. How can we help each other? How can we help each other's constituents? And the other thing that has become very real in the pandemic is so many businesses streamlined their supply chains. They simplified or overly simplified or overly complicated their business models. The more different kinds of business you have, but also different business models within those industries. You have B2B, B2C, B2B2C, and all the other permutations of that. This is the more economic diversity that we create, that we can nurture, the better. The more people diversity we can. A big phenomenon in the US Pacific Northwest are partnerships, where someone old like me partners with a 25-year-old. You have a successful business person who is 70, starting a business with a 25-year-old software engineer, and they are kicking butt. It's a powerful combination. Bringing together those resources of age. Idaho is one of the better US states for women entrepreneurs, and we still suck. We're still awful at it. It's nice that we're better than most of the other states, but it's not much comfort, to be honest. That we have a very strong Hispanic business community that is very robust. It's doing pretty well. Our Latina entrepreneurs in Idaho and the US are maybe the fastest growing strong segment of our entrepreneurial population. And that's without even trying to help them. Imagine what we could do. We could help them. So again, what can we do? All right, some tangible things that you and I can do right now without spending a lot of money. One is just getting people to realize it's an ecosystem, that it's a rainforest, not a farm, is helping entrepreneurs to understand their stakeholders and to connect with them. What is my value proposition to you? What is my value proposition to Wave? Is it right? What is my value proposition to Professor Valdivia? What is my value proposition to Professor Repico? For me to figure that out. And one way to get started, I love doing these. a lot of fun and incredibly informative is get entrepreneurs in the room, get business people in the room, just the business people, just the entrepreneurs, and listen to them. What is it they are looking for? What is it that they think they need, as opposed to what us experts are? I can usually, going into a listening session, I could predict what they're going to say, but they always, I'm sort of right, because they always surprise me. There are great things that, whether it's government or banks or whoever the stakeholder, there are things that we could do that universities could do that wouldn't even cost any money. So that's important. In terms of planning ahead, being prepared for this, that there are some tools that are out there that you can help businesses. Well, what if this happens? What are you going to do? Just even starting to think about that helps. Another thing we can work on are the right kind of metrics. In software, the bane of existence are these vanity metrics. Do they have the expression vanity metrics? Does that translate?
Not directly, but
well,
yeah, like for show, for a show,
yeah,
you know, like metrics.
Is it if I said, I have a website and 1 million people are looking at my website every month, would you invest in me? Or would you ask, okay, how long do they stay on the website? I say, okay, 1 million people visit and they spend 10 seconds each. They don't click through. You wouldn't invest in me. You'd like hunt me down and say, Norris, stop. don't waste money. And this is a kind of bad, but there are a lot of bad advice. Well, all you need is lots of people looking at your website, and that's going to make you money. And this is the thing, is how do we identify the truly great, who is giving the great advice? Good advice isn't, in tough times, good advice isn't enough. It's got to be great advice. But one of the things you do, and this is a longer term project, but can you map who has resources and information that are accessible to you? We live in this now global world. What's available online as well as locally? But then you have to ask, who has the best information? You know, who has really great information, great resources, they're great mentors. And who has the best for you? Because a great mentor for me is probably not going to be a great mentor for Martha. And that probably will be a different one for Benjamin. That helping people to sort that out. And that one is not easy or cheap to do, but it's a good place to start. Remember my talking liaison animateur. By the way, when I first heard the term, the guy invented it was from Ireland. Now, you can imagine a very strong Irish accent pronouncing a French word. It took me 3 times to understand what he was saying. That what we can do is to help the connectors you have and the connectors you want to, people who want to be connectors, is teaching them how to understand and create terrific value propositions for all of their as many of their stakeholders as possible. And that's a pretty easy exercise. If you want to do a workshop on that, I can do that. I can say, start these entrepreneur-only listening sessions. I'm cheating here because I know you guys are already doing that. Do more of them. It is just, you now know how powerful that can be. And one of the things to ask them is, what are the metrics they are looking? What are the KPIs that they're using? If they have bad ones, you can help them. But figuring out what are the right metrics for your community, for your policymakers, for instance, they need to understand. I'm going to come back to that. For instance, here is sometimes if you've got a long drawn out process, you need to look at the process metrics. Are we taking the right steps now? So another homework item will be, I want to come back to you guys on later, is the future is, where would you like to start? Where let's get some of these projects actually going. If I asked the people on this call, okay, who are the people giving that best possible advice? Who are the truly great mentors and subject matter experts on, who is the best at designing an MVP, who is the best at design thinking, that kind of, and you could very easily create, through the university, for example, this master class, get each one of these best of the best to do an hour webinar and create a series of that. Eventually, mapping your ecosystem, there are a couple tools. The first one linked is a pretty simple one. The best in class is SourceLink out of Kansas City, Missouri. And there are a couple tools. I would just click on those links later and you will really love what they have. And if you're trying to figure out how do we do some of these things, students are our secret weapon. Students are our secret weapon. Sending out even high school students to engage the community and do projects has been staggering, because everybody wants to save their neighborhood. Everybody wants to help their own community. And they've got the motivation, and at least in the United States, students will do anything for an A, including saving the world. A little bit longer here. That what kind of data is out there that you can share? In most countries, look at this graph. I don't know if you can see this clearly, but net job change. Jobs come from new businesses on balance. I will bet Chile's number look a lot like that, because every other country on earth looks like this. That it's new businesses, younger businesses that matter. Simply getting that information out to policymakers can be very powerful. Very powerful. I have a really dumb question, Aiva. Is Chile one of the countries in the OECD?
Yes, it is.
Well, I would another exercise for later is what the OECD does periodically is they go into a region and say, we want to do a big study on innovation, entrepreneurship, higher ed in a community. And I've been on several of these teams, and it is really a lot of fun. Sometime we won't mention, they had a lot of money and using it stupidly. We don't want to name names. We went into this one links to the Netherlands, and for not a lot of money, they were doing incredible things to bring people together to build an incredible ecosystem. One, it's a very inspiring talk because they really didn't, they spent a lot less money than they spent money, but not as much as you think. But think about maybe if you want to do that, look at that report and say, okay, let's get OECD to do that. You got to find someone they don't want to pay for it. You have to find sponsors to pay for it, but this is something that Corpo or somebody might be very interested in. I mean, these are things I want to, again, we could do a webinar, do a workshop on stakeholder analysis, do a workshop on listening sessions. We can start talking about metrics. You guys can start, once you identify the best and brightest in your community, build it into a master class. It's really a lot of fun. I'm starting to work on that here, and there are people who say, well, why didn't you invite me? Why didn't you invite me, you jerk? I did invite you. Oh, okay. It's something that people are very enthused. It's a way for them to pay forward in their communities. And we can talk about mapping later. I would look at the source link things, but they're very expensive. The first link is pretty cool. So what else can we do together? Well, one of the things that there are some resources here for you to look at. Here are different people who are doing things. These are things to get started on. And again, there are the Kauffman Foundation's eShip initiative is about ecosystem building and trying to create a profession of these bottom-up, outside-in ecosystem builders as a profession and as a professional association. And there are a lot of interesting stuff that are going on with all that. I would please feel free to contact me. There's some, I got here, they've got some other great equipment. Now, let me back up a bit. Okay, a good place to start. So, have I talked too long, or can we chat, or what? I'm excited. I want to figure out how I can help you guys directly. So
good. So what we can do is switch to I will do my presentation in a short way, and that actually gives you some ideas on to what we can do together, and that would take us to Q&A, and I think that will be the most exciting part of today.
It always is, because somebody asks me a question, always asks me a question I can't answer. It's very good. Yep. It's very good for me to have that happen.
Yep, that's always fun.
Okay, so thank you, Norris. We will hold on answering questions to the end of our second presentation today. So Eva Sebrite, she's an academic at the Faculty of Law and Business of the Universidad de La Frontera, Chile. She teaches entrepreneurship and development in emerging economy, in medium, small, micro enterprises, resilience and sustainability on undergraduate and graduate level. Her research interests include entrepreneurship and local development, entrepreneurship, small business and community resilience, social entrepreneurship and innovation, globalization and its local impacts. Currently, Eva Sebrite is a PhD in management student at the ISN, University of Management and Economics in Lithuania, and she's currently the lead researcher of the UFRO FP project, multi-scale model to improve resilience of medium and small medium enterprises and local communities to disasters and crises, carried out in collaboration with the international team of researchers. Eva, the set is on you.
Thank you for the setup. Norris, you'll have to stop sharing in order for me to pull up my slides. Thank you.
I did like the comment about A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Thank you.
I want to hear about EF. I want to hear EFG. I want to hear about EFG.
All right, here it goes. What the EFG is. Let me just adjust because I have two screens here. Can you see it in full?
Who is that? Who is that distinguished looking person on this slide?
I used to have a title of director next to my name a couple of years ago. All right, so thank you very much. I'll just as Norris did, I'm giving a shout out to our patrons. As you said, Norris, you can never thank them enough. And the Cercotex logo also appears at the end, and these are our patrons who have promoted the today's event. And today's presentation is on MSME resilience, and it has a twofold purpose. First, it highlights the importance of inclusivity. Does it sound familiar? Notice inclusivity in entrepreneuring ecosystem. And second, it showcases data collected through these listening to grassroots opinions and information, listening to entrepreneurs, and through sort of pushing that information up to governmental authorities such as Cercotec and the regional minister who spoke, welcomed us today in the beginning. So in 2020, before we spoke of, before 2020, before the pandemic, we spoke of resilient nations, and the 2014 Human Development Report published by UNDP was entitled Sustaining Human Progress, Reducing Vulnerabilities and Building Resilience. Then the latest 2020 Human Development Report, right, Norris mentioned already the UN and the work that they're doing, among other things, with this, with micro, small, and medium enterprises. So the 2020 report says that it's about the next frontier, about human development and the Anthropocene, and that report mentions resilience 87 times. You know, but what about the local ecosystems, not the national ones? So here you can see the GEM report, which was based on GEM Global Report, which demonstrates findings based on interviews and surveys with nearly 140,000 people from 46 economies. And they, when they do this survey, they both survey the adult population, just generally, not necessarily entrepreneurs, and then they do the national expert survey, and we do that in La Araucanía, UFRO, my Department of Management and Economics at the Faculty of Law and Business. We actually talk to the experts, and the important part of this expert survey are the entrepreneurs. So this survey is more structured, listening to entrepreneurs, but still, it is a good tool to measure also during, over time, how their opinions and suggestions change and what they evolve into. So since the SMEs make up to 99.5% of firms in Latin America and provide 60% of formal productive employment, the situation is very similar in Chile. We have 9.6% percent of companies in Chile that are micro, small, or medium enterprises. And just as Seremi mentioned, as Regional Minister mentioned, out of more than 47,000 enterprises here in the La Araucanía region, the ones, it is more than 86% of them are micro enterprises. So that's, for me, these numbers are impressive as far as the issue of resilience are concerned. So not only that MSMEs are a key part of our business and entrepreneurial ecosystems, they are the ones who do what this definition that I like of ecosystems, they are the ones who keep them alive, or what Norris has referred to as healthy. So the entrepreneurial ecosystems are creative, organizing time spaces, which are inhabited by agents so different, not only the entrepreneurs or small business owner managers, but academics, the department chairs like Roberto, who is joining us today, us, the academics, the students, my students from Resilient Entrepreneurship for Sustainable Development course, who are also on this call. And there are so many of these actors who are, having their territories fulfilling a function of creating organizing contexts, and they themselves realizing these practices, implementing them of creative organizing. And that's when we started thinking about, I was thinking about business resilience. I was concerned about that. And then I started working with Marta because she is an industries engineer and systems engineer and knows very well about ecosystems, right? Social, entrepreneurial, or just any other ecosystem. So the resilience processes on the ecosystem scale are part of sustainable development processes. clearly, just as Norris showed as well. So resilience processes on business scale are resilience processes on micro scale, right? On individual scale in terms of social interaction levels. And what we've seen before coming into our first research project, which we already finished with Marta, it was taking place in 2018, is that not enough attention was paid to this meso level, to where the top-down, these national and international pressures meet the bottom-up, the individual pressures. So since since 2017, Martha and I have been looking into how various regional, subnational in this case, entrepreneurial actors of an emerging economy experience business disruptions, right? So these interruptions, these not usual, not normal shocks or shakeups, right? And we came to see that business resilience to disasters is a dynamic condition. So it's a process. It's always changing. And here you have something based on International Standards Organization, the definition. But what I would like to highlight, is that usually these technical definitions are not scientific, but these are the ones who are mostly accessible to like any layperson, everyday entrepreneur. They usually describe resilience as something static, and that we found that we needed more knowledge on that, and that's why we decided to research it. And well, what gave us this idea was, first, it was my experience as a person who comes from a country where the biggest natural disaster is maybe a storm. Even our floods are very small. So for me to live through 2010 earthquake in Chile, I was lucky. I was not living on the coast. I actually lived on in the mountain area at that time, but it still was shocking to me. So my impulse, after having seen not seen the March 2015 volcanic eruption, specifically of volcano Villarrica. I was 12 kilometers away from it, and the photo that you see, it's not my photo, but it depicts exactly what I saw. So I came out of the house already a couple of minutes into the volcanic eruption that was going on. So I saw this. I saw almost 4 kilometers of lava and almost 3 kilometers of smoke and ash going up in space. And that's how my PhD proposal was born. And I submitted it to the ISM, University of Management and Economics, and got a scholarship to research that. And that happened in 2016. So I will not go into more detail in this timeline of disasters that are relevant to Chile and specifically to La Araucanía region. But I need to highlight for all of you to have this better context, that in the context of social uprising, the GDP growth decreased in 3.9% from 3.9% in 2018 to 1.1% in 2019. The unemployment rate in Chile is not that big. However, more than 30% of population is economically vulnerable, and income inequality remains high. And in 2020, during the pandemic, the main difficulties reported by entrepreneurs and MSMEs to UFRO, right? So as you said, Norris, we were listening to entrepreneurs. The fall was in great numbers where, the main change was fall in the numbers of clients, and another one was the difficulty they experienced was lack of liquidity. And in La Araucanía, entrepreneurs lack capacity and skills to innovate. These are the sort of the diagnostics that come up over and over again in different projects and programs. And also that the government mechanisms, like the state support mechanism, are not seen as opportunities to finance elements that would promote resilience, that would improve resilience processes. They are just not seen as nor marketed as this sort of opportunity, right? So they usually are marketed as opportunity to finance your newest business idea and so on. And the saddest part is that entrepreneurs do not see themselves as creators of social value. But the great thing about this last point is that we see the situation changing. And with this data of all on the context, on the subnational region, on La Araucanía context and on Chilean context, I think exactly what also Norris was referring to, it is important for us to take the perspective of an MSME. Even though I am an academic, I don't have my own enterprise, I don't have my micro, nor small, nor medium enterprise, even though I used to be an entrepreneur for many, many years. And my parents still are, and I still feel that I am part of a very entrepreneurial family who first started using their skills in the era of perestroika. So we were the first ones to take advantage of possibility to generate a bit of private income in the context where the state was in charge of everything. So here, just very, very briefly, I will ask you to participate here with me in sitting on this proverbial MSME bench, or MSME perspective bench. So we are sitting here on this wonderful bench, right? And we see this beautiful valley. If we see just a little bit, to the left, we can see this diversity, these flowers blooming, right? Some of them already, like the poppy here, they are already seeds, and others are in full bloom, all right? So we are definitely, as Norris said, we are not looking at an eucalyptus or pine tree monocultive or a farm-like, one crop perspective. But then if we just look right behind us, this is a zoom, quite a quality zoom of what was behind the bench for me. So we see araucaria trees. It is such a typical traditional, mountain area of La Araucanía vista. And finally, if we would have went down to the valley, we would have seen this amazing river, right? Leocura River at the bottom. So what happens in these situations when we are just sitting on the bench and looking at our cell phone, and trying to figure out solutions for how to make our enterprise more resilient, we miss a lot of things, right? We miss all these different vistas and perspectives, and then we ask ourselves, so what I can do for my enterprise, or in this case, us, the actors in academia, for example, how do we help? What do we need to do for entrepreneuring ecosystem to be more resilient or to just be healthier, as Norris indicated? And we see these many pebbles, these many options, and it is definitely overwhelming to have so many options. And what happens if we collaborate and work on things together, we can put these little pebbles sort of in order and prioritize, right? And we can pick up a pebble and do something with it, right? Make a decision if we have them in order, if we streamline our thinking. And that's what the research that we carried out with Marta helped us do, right? And it told us that in La Araucanía, the MSMEs during the pandemic need the following, what you can see here, an app, but not a digital app, not something else for your phone, right? They need awareness, preparedness, and patience to be able to adapt and change, absorb the shocks or adapt to them. And Valentina Barahona Vidal, our student, undergraduate student who conducted 37 mentoring sessions for entrepreneurs, has dedicated 2 months of her internship to listening to entrepreneurs. And they told us 3 things. So first they said that what is really missing is lack of resources, flow of key activities, so that they would like to be able to have the ability, to keep up the flow of their key activities, maybe in lesser volumes, but keep it, maintain it. And the third thing is again exactly what Norris talked about, right? About people who connect other people with each other, and these are ecosystem building. So the activation of key alliances, and you can see here that this whole data was gathered in 2021, so in this January, February, but we already published something with Marta on that and submitted it. So we published that in 2019 and then submitted something in 2020. And it was the same, right? So key alliances, key activities, and slack in resources. So this part of a very familiar side of this business model canvas that we all know so well was something that came up again and again and again. So, and with this I close, as we're coming in to have an hour, and we would like to have more of a conversation with you guys. But things that were related with the social uprising of 2019, social uprising where Chileans were looking for quality, for equality, right? For inclusiveness as key points of their just everyday life, and which are key points for entrepreneuring as well. We saw that the expert survey, which includes also these entrepreneurs, highlight specifically the following keywords, and that's where the ABCDFG comes in. So first, the associativity, right? Associatividad, which is a slogan that we hear very often. Another is benefit, positive environmental, economic, and social impact is what experts thought we need in order to be resilient in this pandemic situation, and also when the uprising happened. The C was for creativity in cyberspaces. Araucanía, Digital Araucanía was the initiative which was mentioned many times by both entrepreneurs, practitioners, and people who we sort of refer to as experts. Decentralization, so that's the D in ABCD. So the living condition in the regions, prevents enterprises of having human capital, which they consider, that could as sharing their values. So this was referring to indigenous populations as well, that people who are educated at UFRO or other regional universities here in the south of Chile go usually leave and go to live and work in Santiago, and that's very detrimental, and that decentralization policies are a must for having, healthy entrepreneurial ecosystems. Education is the E in ABCDE. F, financing, greater emphasis on subsidies is being placed right now in the middle of the pandemic. But for 2019, social uprising, more emphasis was placed on just private loans and venture capital and saying, we're strong, we can do it. It's a challenge that we're happy to accept, even being a small business here in La Araucanía. So, that was very inspiring that that part was changing, but it was, but most capital, venture capital and private investment is available in Santiago. So this F in A, B, C, D, E, F is also related to D, to this decentralization. And finally, G, globalization. We have small businesses here in La Araucanía recognizing the benefits of globalization and wanting to participate and get those benefits sort of down to us, to earth, to our Walmapu, to La Araucanía, to the territories here. But again, some obstacles were mentioned again and again and again by entrepreneurs in both the GEM survey and throughout Valentina's mentoring interviews with them. So at the end, the learnings from these 4 in total different mini studies that compose our big multi-scale model research, the truth is here in this underlined phrase. And it's something that has been observed 10 years ago, right? So it's something that is the learning that has been derived many years ago. And there's a good Russian saying goes, everything innovative and everything new is well forgotten, old, something well forgotten from the past, something that we recover from the past, right? So here, like any social activity, like any practice, everyday life actually is a flow of disturbances. So I end with that thought, basically saying, as Nori said, how can you have, if you recognize that you have an ecosystem, so basically you are speaking of a resilient ecosystem, or you are not speaking of an ecosystem. I think that we can definitely build on these words of this Danish professor, but especially to build on the experiences of our entrepreneurs and MSME owner managers here in La Araucanía. Thank you.
Thank you, Yeva. Thank you both. Now that the speakers share their experience, I will show you the highlight of a manual with tips for improvement of MSMEs, resilience to disaster and crisis. As mentioned before, it is the result of a community outreach project augmenting impact of an ongoing action research project. Both projects have an entrepreneur ecosystem view of MSMEs and entrepreneur reality. We believe that this approach is of use both to academics and practitioners, and we hope that their presentation provoke thought and in the future will provoke action to grow our entrepreneur ecosystems and strengthen the resilience process. So I don't know if Yeva, you're sharing or I can share. Yeah, I can share. So I'll show you the this is the cover of the manual. I hope you are looking at it. And a short introduction. We teach you how to do SWOT analysis of your business in a looming crisis situation. And this infographic illustrates the levels of risk your business might face dependent of disaster event threatening it. This is the good old BCM with some hot tips on how to improve resilience. We are done, and this is a short, which is a very light on technical information and is easy to apply. This manual will surely help the regional micro, small, and medium enterprises to overcome resilience when facing disaster and crisis, very common in Chile, unfortunately. Well, now that we are done with the presentation, I would like to thank you for your patience. And we have a question on the chat that was left by Seremi Lopez. But if you do have any other questions, you can write them in the chat, and I will ask our presenters to reply to as many of them as possible, given the time frame we do have. I will stop the sharing of my screen, and I will go through the question. Yeva has translated the question for me, so that's easier. And Naris, the Seremi, was asking, how does the manual we are launching today, hands-on guide to improving the micro, small, and medium enterprises resilience, pencils into what you are presenting on resilience driving factors, the ABCD? That was his question.
Oh, thank you. You can probably tell that I knew what a lot of what was in the manual. So as I was going first, I wanted to set that up. However, Ayeva's ABCDEFG is better than my ABCD. That I didn't know she was doing the letter thing. I would have phrased it differently. That knowing, so it's a little bit of maybe it's a bit unfair that knowing what how the project has been going so far, I don't see anything that that contradicts what I said. I hope that what I have provided has been supportive. I think there are things that could do more of. For instance, that you could expand the mentoring, that you can expand, that once you identified all these connectors, is figuring out how to connect the connectors, if that makes sense. That when I go to events like this Kaufman E-ship program, even on Zoom calls, it's sort of like meeting family you didn't know you had. It's like, oh my God, as one of my friends says, oh my God, 400 Norrises in the same room. Yeah, it's pretty scary, but it's also quite rewarding. It's sort of like being part of a tribe, being part of this amazing club of people who, once you see the world through the ecosystem lens, it's, if any of you ski, sometimes it's hard to see when the sun is glaring, but you put on just the right goggles, everything is crystal clear. In a lot of ways, that's how it feels. They're having the same pains, the same joys, the same frustrations, and the same delight as things moving forward. In the early days of the academic field, people sort of discovered that in a lot of ways, entrepreneurs in different countries were more like each other than we could possibly have realized. That they share this mindset, that these deep cognitive structures, maps, schemas, scripts that are powerful. And once you've seen them, you cannot unsee them. I mean, I cannot be a non-entrepreneur. I can't not think like that now. And the more that you get people to believe that, the scientific phrase is role identity. Can I see myself as an entrepreneur? And one thing I always like to do is, especially in person, is ask people to take out a piece of paper, draw me a picture of an entrepreneur. 60 seconds, go. And it is amazing the pictures they draw. In a lot of cases, they're very unrealistic. You know, it's just some guy with a bag of money or something. But it gives you a chance to start the conversation. But the depressing thing is a woman draws a picture of a guy, of a man, that someone, a minority student here in the US draws a picture of a white guy. How do they see themselves as an entrepreneur? Maybe that's a bit extreme, but it's a conversation. Can you see yourself as an entrepreneur? And can you see yourself? And it's also a very powerful way if you're trying to engage people who are not terribly literate. I have a dear friend who is working with Syrian women who had fled their war-torn country to Jordan. They didn't speak English. They didn't even necessarily read or be able to write in Arabic. So she had to draw a picture of themselves as an entrepreneur. And it was powerful because it was like, it really, it's something that comes out. And getting people to realize that they are an entrepreneur, again, they can be an entrepreneur. Their heart is really powerful. They were so powerful that she's showing to me on her tablet in the middle of a Chicago hotel during the Academy of Management at lunchtime. And I have tears running down my face, and people are like now avoiding, like, oh my God, what happened? Somebody died. I said, no, this is good. This is good news. That's important. The other thing is a lot of people don't realize that they don't understand the startup life. They may have experienced a family business, but they can't translate that into their own startup. But as more people start up successful ventures in your community, no matter where you are on earth, that tacit knowledge, but again, mentors and helpers are good. One thing I didn't put on my list that might make sense is Eva and Martha, do you have now in your region have a good list of great mentors? Do you have a list of like, here are the 10 best mentors in your region?
No.
Could you do that?
Maybe we can try, but I think
one of the things you can do, there's a sneaky way to do this. My friend of mine did this in Boston. So everybody put startup mentor on their LinkedIn profile because that was the cool thing to do, even if they're idiots. It's a cool thing to do. So he said, we need a mentoring academy. And one of our banks here is talking about doing it because, well, it was kind of their idea. So which also helped, also good. The key to getting things done is making that person believe it was her idea. That's sly, but she would have gotten there anyway. Is a mentoring academy. Is let's get the best mentors and coach each other to be great mentors. No, so what he did was he had identified like the 20 best startup mentors in all of the Boston, Massachusetts area. He announces his class, and the first 15 people to sign up for the class weren't beginners. They were already the experts, because the experts knew I need to know more. So, but getting your mentors together and not just, they'll work with each other, but all support each other, but also a lot of them don't necessarily know each other. So that's good. But they can also provide advice to other people who are trying to help entrepreneurs. Sure. And it's a lot of little things, and it's not very hard to do. And you may have to pay for coffee or beer, but you do have beer in Chile, right?
Lithuanian beer from my town, yes.
Okay, Lithuanian beer and Chilean red wine. That'll work. That's the kind of thing that you can do.
We do have very, very. There are instances, not that we don't have mentors. We do, but a top 10 list we don't have. We do have the incubator and accelerator. So this Incubatec UFRO that Marta mentioned. And that's from UFRO. And they are now, actually, what I was going to do is to close with that, sort of a symbolic closing, but at the end, in a couple more minutes,
Okay.
with their video, because they grew out from, they are, long outgrew La Araucanía. So they are a pool of mentors working in the south of Chile, in all of Chile, and many years in a row, Incubatec UFRO was the best incubator accelerator in Latin America. And it was a couple of years ago, it was 8th in the world, declared by Canadians. So
That's
we definitely
impressive.
we have that.
I did not
we
know
have,
that.
We have here at the Law and Business faculty, we have a business clinic and we have a law clinic. And they both collaborate in different areas. One of them, for example, the law clinic is big on helping with consumer complaints. So they don't work directly with SMEs, but they provide the sort of, they're an important actor in the ecosystem. And we did also like an infographics with them on consumer rights in the pandemic. And our business clinic, headed by Oscar Alvarado, and it's part of the business school. They do work absolutely, shoulder to shoulder with entrepreneurs. They do not, as opposed to the incubator, which does the startup work, business clinic dedicates itself to micro enterprises. So their sort of niche. And now as to the medium-sized enterprises is actually, well, Seremi had to go after Norris's speech, but Cercotec has business development centers, just like in US, you have small business development centers program. So here we have, in Chile, we have now, I think 52 or 53. And the top 2 business development centers, small business development centers in Chile are actually in La Araucanía. So
you guys are very blessed with a lot of great resources. When I go to these Kaufman, the ecosystem builder conferences, they all hate our small business development centers because in my country, they are expected to be imperialistic, that they're told they need to be in charge, and that doesn't work well. And a lot of them just don't understand the radical kinds of change, the innovation that new businesses have to start. But you have a great incubator, and I mean, you have a lot of resources to get started on. That's very encouraging. You have and really have a tremendous advantage there.
Inclusivity is still an issue. Oh, sorry.
Well, anyway, just a couple things that I did one of these calls a couple months ago with the folks in North Macedonia, and one of the things that they found is relatively few of their new and small businesses even had a website. That in this modern age, you have to have a website. And they were getting more websites, but they were terrible websites, and they really didn't understand e-commerce. What is the sort of e-commerce situation in your region?
It's a oof.
Yeah.
30% of La Araucanía has no cell phone connection, let alone G4. One of our colleagues now, Roberto, can comment. Claudina Uribe is now the Transport and Telecommunications Regional Minister of this region, and she basically, among other things, but that's one of the things she has, to fix in terms of policy and programs and infrastructure. The e-commerce got a boost through the pandemic, clearly, but even before that, we already were working, I refer to us as, the ecosystem actors, right? So in addition to the Cercotec, the Service of Technical Cooperation, there's Corfo, which is the biggest development agency here in Chile. And
Your
they
largest,
have
your largest development agency is
business development agency, Corfo,
I know
CORFO.
I know Corfo.
Exactly. So with there we already had some, even like for example, indigenous textiles being destined through sale through Amazon, for example, a program of many, together with Pro Chile, which is another government agency. But yeah, just as what I completely agree with Martha's reaction, which was oof. So
Oof,
yeah.
yeah.
Oof is the right word.
Okay, well, let me
comparison.
tell you a dirty little secret. There are maybe 40% of American businesses have no clue about e-commerce, that do no business online. And a lot of them have crappy websites. But here's something that in the U.S. state of New Mexico, that again, this is part of the students are our secret weapon model, is that they pledged, they get students to go out, meet with businesses, and build them a website and teach them the basics of e-commerce. They said, the idea was they were going to do 1,000 of these websites, one every day for 3 years. 3 times 365 is actually more than 1,000, but I was a math major, so I can't do arithmetic, but so maybe they're right. But it's a kind of thing that is fairly simple to do, and students can do it for college credit. And in fact, what's happening is there are high school students taking, in the US, high school student can take some college courses and get credits in advance of going to school. They can get credits, they can get certifications from Microsoft and Google, like Google Small Business. This is something where it isn't going to cost you very much. And the students will go out, and students like to help their hometown. And it reminded me of something that we long ago studied here in the US, is if high school students have taken an entrepreneurship class, they are more likely to not leave their hometown. Even if they go off to college or a job in the big city, they come back. So it's a great retention device. Also, entrepreneurship students tend to have better grades and test scores. The causality may be off there, but that's kind of important.
Sure. No, that's one of the reasons we have a minor program in entrepreneurship.
And it's sort of
universal for everyone.
What I love about teaching entrepreneurship is I've done classes where I had a 12-year-old and a 75-year-old in the same class, and every age in between. The 2 best students were the 12-year-old and the 75-year-old. So they're my heroes at that. But that you don't have to really dumb it down and all that. Now, another thing about the micro businesses and the web is there's a huge, wonderful data set I'm trying to get a hold of. There's one of the companies that registers your website. You go to their website, it's called GoDaddy, and much better company after they fired their idiot boss. But that they've been keeping track because they are setting up the website, the URL, selling the URLs to micro businesses. They have 20 million businesses in their database that they've been able to track. They can actually all sorts of data. And one of the things they found is these micro businesses turn out to have a much bigger impact economically than you would. It's a part-time, one-person business. It does have a positive economic impact on their local community. The numbers I'm looking at and going, is that real? And can I have the data? Not yet, working on it though.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe I need to register, but there may be some, you know, there may be some people like that. I don't know if GoDaddy is a big registrar there, but that they're a tremendous source of data, and it's a lot of fun for them to look at. That's sort of the fun, you know, in finding data that's out there. In the rural U.S., everybody says there's no data on rural entrepreneurs. Well, it turns out our U.S. Department of Agriculture has a huge database on rural communities that nobody knew was there, because our federal government didn't give them any money to advertise they had the database, which was really, like, please, somebody look at our data, please.
Sure.
And
no, but information is everything.
You may find, but if you have an agriculture, a National Department of Agriculture, they may have some very interesting rural data to look at.
Sure.
But,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, just wanted to. Thanks. I just wanted to include Roberto into this, because he's one of those, he would be your best student in your 12 plus 70, 12 and 70 class.
Oh, he's 12, he's 12 like me?
He's 12, definitely, of course. Yeah. So I wanted to ask Roberto, his take on this, or if he had a question, because we had, one question from Seremi. The audience has dwindled into only my students, who I think are barely keeping up in English, but Roberto's English is really good enough for a question. Yes. Any question or comment?
Well, you have a dozen people following on YouTube, it seems. So.
Oh, yeah, as well.
Or pretending to.
Could be.
Bueno, I just wanted to, on behalf of the Department of Management and Economics, thanks Norris Krieger for this excellent lecture. A very important learning in understanding entrepreneurship phenomena, and particularly resilience. And also I have to congratulate Eva and Martha for their excellent work today. And also for the beautiful presentation of Eva.
Thanks.
Well, just a final reflection for me. I am not an expert in entrepreneurship, but I have had learned a lot in the university, listening lectures and conferences and so on. Chile has always been a country of entrepreneurs. Earthquakes, floods, periods of economic recessions, volcanic eruptions somehow drive us to be entrepreneurs. Is that real or not?
Well, it is real, because you go to any country on earth that they have large numbers of small and micro, small and medium businesses. In Germany, they have a few more medium-sized businesses statistically, but that at the heart of every country that has ever been studied, and in every recession that they've looked at, who leads the economy, who leads the country out of the darkness? It's the innovative new and small businesses, the new businesses that are popping up, coping with crisis, the small businesses that have innovated and pivoted to great new business models. I ask people, well, I don't know, and I ask people, like, well, tell me about, you must know at least one local business that's doing something brilliant to deal with this. And I have this guy, he's one of the top French chefs in the world. He fell in love with an American and moved to Omaha, Nebraska, which is like the last place you would expect a French chef. But he's going to open a restaurant. His restaurant's ready to go. All the money's been spent and the pandemic hit. So now he teaches cooking online. He's making twice the money he would have from the restaurant. Plus his recipes, even I can do his recipes. So that is so encouraging. But we all know this is that humans, Roberto, so many people are humans are innovative people. We're innovative creatures, and it's just giving them an opportunity. This is why inclusion is so important. There are people whose ideas are getting unleashed now that didn't before. I was telling you, I go to our Hispanic Chamber of Commerce meetings. I belong to them, not the regular chamber, because the regular chamber people are really boring. Hispanic Chamber, go to lunch. Everybody's walking around, not just chatting each other, they're helping each other. They're advising each other. Say, hey, I gave you, did that connection work out for you? If not, I got somebody else. And it is just, they get it. And a lot of communities get it more than our city's Chamber of Commerce. You go to meetings and you just hand people business cards. Well, you know, that the key is getting those, to unleashing those innovative minds is simply helping them to communicate with each other and with experts. But even if you don't, entrepreneurs in 1932, the worst year of the Great Depression, the worst economic year in American history, 400,000 people started businesses that year. Are they idiots? No, maybe some, maybe some. But you know, the human spirit is hard to keep down. And you made a really excellent point about, you know, adversity. You know, there's an expression in English is that adversity doesn't create character, it unveils. We get to see who we really are. And most of the time, it's who we are at our best. And so I think, you know, there is a lot to be said. Here in Idaho, Boise is like Santiago. The rest of the state of Idaho complains because everybody moves here.
Okay.
But we're starting to see them move back and to the other parts of the rural world. But you are right. Chile is a nation of entrepreneurs. But I would ask you to come up with, what would be, if you were to draw a picture of a Chilean entrepreneur, what would be different than other countries? Other than you speak a form of Spanish that Google Translate doesn't understand. But I'm so excited. By the way, I'm really glad that there are 3 speakers, that the other 2 are better than I am. So I'm always, they certainly were shorter. It's really an honor to be here, and I hope that with your students, that we can continue talking about research, but also talking about what I can do to help you implement that manual. I am at your service.
Great. Let me, thanks. So I was thinking, Marta, that what we can do now is just end the streaming. But those of us who want to can stay on. For example, I'm happy to stay on. So if you could just say a couple words and say bye, then I will stop the transmission, but we can stay on the call.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it's 1 p.m. Chilean time. So I would like to thank Norris and Yeva and Roberto for being here. And also I would like to thank our patrons. We cannot forget Cercotec, Incubatec UFRO, ICSB, the Faculty of Law and Management at Universidad de La Frontera, and the departments involved in supporting this project. And I would like to thank also all the participants for being here with us in the launching of this manual. Thank you very much. And all of you who want to stay, you are welcome to stay. We're stopping the transmission now.
Well, I must say goodbye, Norris. Thank you. again.
UFRO es la incubadora de la Universidad de La Frontera. Con más de 20 años de experiencia, hemos apoyado a más de 500 emprendedores en nuestros programas de incubación y aceleración, así como a más de 4.000 empresarios en nuestros programas de formación. El formar parte de la red de innovación y impacto ha entregado en UFRO el carácter internacional. Y es de esta manera como hemos logrado llevar nuestras metodologías, capacidades y transferir nuestros conocimientos en distintos países de Latinoamérica y el Caribe y trabajar con distintos profesionales en estos territorios. Para nosotros, la red de innovación y impacto ha generado esta apertura hacia Latinoamérica, hacia apoyar el emprendimiento, pero ya no solo desde nuestro país, sino que desde las distintas realidades que nos presenta este hermoso territorio de Latinoamérica y el Caribe. Los dejamos muy invitados a que puedan ustedes conocer lo que hacemos en UFRO a través de nuestras redes sociales y también a través de nuestras páginas web. Pero por sobre todo, los queremos dejar invitados a que consideren a UFRO como un partner para sus proyectos de futuro. Muchas gracias.